Howdy all, good morning. Welcome in. We're so glad to see you. Man, we have a good crowd for Bible class. This is excellent. We're all super familiar with the story of Elisha and Naaman. Turn to 2 Kings 5, if you will. We're going to be rehashing some of the details, but especially today with a view toward what kind of lessons can we take out of all that we bring in from 2 Kings 5. All about Elisha and Naaman. Or is it? And is it only they from whom we should be learning lessons? Let's see what we can find in this place. So in 2 Kings 5, our new prophet on the scene, Elisha, he encounters the Syrian man, and of course his name is Naaman. Verse number 1 of 2 Kings 5. Now Naaman, who was a commander of the army of the king of Syria, was a great and honorable man in the eyes of his master, because by him the Lord, that is Yahweh, who of course is the God of Israel, had given victory to Syria. Now hang on to that little piece. We're going to come back to that. He was a mighty man of valor, that is Naaman, but tragically he was a leper. So let's go back through and let's consider what's going on in Naaman's existence here. He is a great and an honorable man. So great, that can mean about 7 different things. I'm going to guess here that probably it has to do with he's prominent, and probably as well that he's wealthy. You might say that about him. Stated of Job that he's the greatest man in all the East, and then we find all of his wealth details that are listed. Maybe it has to do with that. Maybe there's more. So this guy is prominent. This man is popular, and he is wealthy or great. He's honorable. He's a respectable individual. And this is a detail I think that can get lost in the shuffle. This is a good guy. We might say that he's very moral, that he cares about others, that he treats them in a proper way. So he's great, he's prominent, he's wealthy, he's honorable, he's respectable, he's moral in the eyes of his master. Because, now, from his master's standpoint, because by him, that's Naaman, the Lord had given victory to Syria. And it could be that it sounds like the master or the guy in charge, the king of the entire country of Syria, really values this gentleman on the basis of what he can do for him. You've done good things for me, and so I consider you a wonderful person. And I ask all of us to evaluate, how do we value others? Is it simply on the basis of how they can benefit us? Or simply how good they make us feel? Or how good they make us look? How successful they make us? Or do we value them because they're human beings? And whether it helps us or not, they're just good people in general. Yes, sir. Yes. Yes, it is unusual, Roy, and hang on to that, okay? Please, I want us to talk about that even more, and feel free to chime in more on that. So he's a great and honorable man in the eyes of the master, because by him the Lord had given victory to Syria. Hey, this guy's valuable to me. And hopefully there's more to it than that, but he sees him as valuable because of how much he helps him in large part. He was also a mighty man of valor. That means he was successful in military. Okay, so we take a step back and we contemplate what's going on with this fellow. He is prominent, he's popular, he's rich, he's a good guy, he's respectable, he treats others the right way, and he's extremely successful. In fact, you could argue probably, since he's commander of the armed forces, the most successful person in his job in the entire land. This guy has it all. In our country, if he were an American, we would say this is an all-American guy. He has everything going for him. But, we're told, that's a term of contrast. What's the one downside here? He is a leper. He is a leper. We don't deal with that much in the United States. There's still a few cases. I think it's something around 100 or so cases last I saw of leprosy, believe it or not, in the United States every year. More of a third world thing. We don't deal with it a whole lot. There's cure for it now. Back then, it's completely different. It's a death sentence. Right, exactly. Yeah. And everyone might not be cured from it because of lack of medical care in certain places, but 100% curable if you can get to, and yeah, right. And a person in a third world land can afford it. So what's brought out to us by Roy, thank you for that, still 100,000, in case you didn't hear it, about 100,000 cases across the world today. So these things still do take place, but back then it's completely different from what it is today. It's a death sentence. And today it would be like saying, hey, you're popular, everybody knows your name, you're super successful in what you do, you're a good person, you're very wealthy, but the doctor said you have terminal cancer. Well, that's a real strike. So it's like all the other stuff doesn't matter. All right, now I want to go back to this since we've identified a little bit about Naaman, who he is, and I might go ahead and show a map just to identify of where we're speaking geographically. And we know by this point, and for those coming in, we're glad to have our teenagers today, a few others also. So if you'll go just to the west of my laser beam, you're going to have Israel. I know we don't have the geographical political borders up that are drawn. And then to the south, so right around in here, but to the west of the Jordan River is Israel, right around in here, but to the west is Judah, and it's the divided kingdom period. Well, if you'll see up, again, we don't have the political boundaries, but if you'll see up here in the arrow, I don't know whether you can read that top box that states Damascus. Why is Damascus an important city, both then as well as today? Nothing's changed, believe it or not. It's the capital city of the country of Syria. Guess what the capital of the country of Syria is today? It hasn't changed, and it's widely reported to be the actual oldest world capital. Not of the world, but a capital of a country in the world. The oldest one today. So things haven't changed. We're about 850 BC. Of course, 2000 now AD. So we're about 3,000 years ago, and it's still the capital. But the point being that Syria is a sizable country located up here to the northeast of Israel. And that's from where the guy comes, probably lives in Damascus. Would make a lot of sense. Notice this. By him, a Syrian, and these are the enemies of God's people. Well, here pretty soon we're going to encounter the name, I believe it's next week again, Ben-Hadad. Remember that guy? For those who have been a part of our class, he's a mess, okay? And he's the guy in power. He's kind of the Saddam Hussein, or kind of the Gaddafi from a few years past to the United States and other countries of the world. He's just a real menace to society. But it's strange that the God of the Israelites had given victory to this pagan people, those who are antagonists of Israel up to the northeast. This guy's been really successful, and he's a good guy, but we're told here that he is successful not just because he's smart and good at his job, but because God has blessed him in his efforts. Why would God do that to an enemy of his people? Why isn't God blessing the commander of the Israelite armed forces? Turn back to chapter 3 of 2 Kings. 2 Kings 3, the first 3 verses. Here's who's in power right now in Israel. Now Jehoram, the son of Ahab, remember this is the second son of Ahab. You've already had one in place, Ahaziah, whose reign, it's like 2 and done. 2 years and he's out, he's a mess. Jehoram, the son of Ahab, became king over Israel at Samaria. It's the capital city of the northern divided kingdom. In the in the 18th year of Jehoshaphat, king of Judah, and he reigned for 12 years. And he did evil in the sight of the Lord. We had this as a memory verse a couple of weeks ago. He did evil in the sight of the Lord. Well, he's the son of father, Ahab. So what do you expect? The whole family is just terrible. However, it goes on to say, but not like his father and his mother, for he put away the sacred pillar of Baal that his father had made. So he doesn't follow in mom's footsteps as the pagan missionary Jezebel, who's come down to the south from the Syro-Phoenicians, and he doesn't continue worshiping those gods, and the Lord appreciates that. He says, hey, that's a plus, that's an improvement. Verse 3, nevertheless, he persisted in the sins of Jeroboam, that was the first king in the north, the son of Nebat, who reintroduced golden calf worship to Israel. So he continues worshiping the golden calf, the idol, and probably other idols also. At least he doesn't do Baal, but who had made Jeroboam the son of Nebat, Israel sin, he did not depart from them. Okay, so this guy's in place, and he is for 12 years. Go back to our text of 2 Kings 5, and the first verse. By him, that's Naaman, that's the commander of the armed forces up to the northeast in Syria. Naaman, by him, the Lord had given victory to Syria. Why is he doing that? I think in large part it's a punishment. It's being brought on Israel. And so he takes a people that are worse than his own people to judge his people. I say that, I'm assuming they're worse. A lot of times that is the case. And God will give judgment like this on this basis. He doesn't always punish the most wicked nation with a better nation. He punishes nations that are wicked, and especially that know better and should be doing better, with more wicked nations. He often does that. That could be one reason that he's giving such blessing to Naaman in his work. Do you have any other guesses as to why he might be behind Naaman and helping him in the Syrian advances, even against the Israelites? I ask you to keep your spot here. Turn to Acts chapter 9. Acts 9. You're probably aware of a guy who was a real problem to God and his people. His name, Saul of Tarsus. Acts 9, we'll go verses 10 through 15. We're not going to actually read all of it, but we're going to hit some snippets of this. I'll tell you where we are, when we are. Acts 9:10. Now there was a disciple at Damascus named Ananias. The Lord said to him in a vision, Ananias. And he said, Here I am, Lord. And the Lord said to him, Rise and go to the street called Straight, and at the house of Judas look for a man of Tarsus named Saul. For behold, he is praying. And he has seen in a vision you, a man named Ananias, come in, lay his hands on him so that he may regain his sight. But Ananias answered, Lord, basically I'm going to paraphrase here, are you sure about this? I know this guy. You know him, right, too? You know everything. You heard of him also. This guy has done much evil to your saints at Jerusalem. He's persecuting your people. Are you sure about this? I ask you to compare what's going on here with Naaman. Here's a guy that, as God's own people would see it, hey, he's hurting us. And could God look at him in a positive light, someone who's doing that? Go down to verse 15. But the Lord said to him, that's to Ananias, Go. For he, the worst persecutor of my people, the greatest antagonist, is, and that's important to me, that's a present tense verb. He doesn't say he will be, okay, keep that in mind. He is currently a chosen instrument of mine to carry my name before the Gentiles and kings and the children of Israel. And basically what he's saying to Ananias is this about Saul. I already see all the good that's in him, and I've already picked him out, and I know all the wonderful things he's going to do for me, but right now he is currently a chosen vessel of mine. I ask you to take that concept from the Testament and rewind with it in 2 Kings 5. How could God be so kind to someone who's being so harsh to his people? I think he already sees the good within this man. And we know that God promises, you will find me if you seek for me with all of your heart. And also we can look at it this way. He says, I will be found by you. I will make myself readily available to you. And that's what God's just about to do for this man. He knows the good heart that he has. Go ahead, Roy. There you go. There you go. He chooses us on the basis from our perspective. Now, God's not confined by time like what we are. But for lack of a better way of putting it, Roy, God chooses us on the basis of what he knows we will choose in the future. But God is the past, the present, and the future all at, for lack of a better way of putting it, the same time. I don't want to get too deeply into it, but Revelation chapter 1, he refers to himself as the first and the last, the beginning and the end. He says, I am, that's a present tense word. I am he who is presently, who was past, and who will be future. But he doesn't say, I was, I am, and I will be. He states it this way. I am presently he who was, or I am past, I am present, I am future, all at the same time. And that doesn't compute with us because of where we live. He lives in a different place. And we are governed by all these rules that he has put in place. He exists outside of those rules. Actually, he created all of those rules. There was a time when those rules didn't exist, and they're only there because he put them in place. So God doesn't answer to the same rules as far as time goes that you and I do, but the rules answer to him because he created them. He knows from our perspective, not from his. He knows from our perspective what Naaman's going to choose before Naaman makes those choices. He knows what Saul of Tarsus is going to choose from our perspective before he makes those choices. So I'm just suggesting to you two real possibilities as to why, biblically, we would know that's in line with scriptural principles, why it is that God has given such success to this pagan man of a pagan country, the enemies of his people. Number one, his people know better and should be doing better. And he's not going to shy away from using a people that are even worse than what they are because they don't know better. They haven't had the same opportunities. I'm not saying they don't know it all, but they haven't had the same opportunities with the law and God's blessing and his promises as what the nation of Israel has. Number two, God knows ahead of time what kind of person Naaman is going to choose to be. We're just starting to learn that right now. So in verse 2 of our text, 2 Kings 5, the Syrians had gone out on raids and had brought back captive a young girl from the land of Israel. She waited on Naaman's wife. And this young lady is going to be the linchpin. She is the key to all of this. And of all the people God has selected, he takes this little girl essentially as a missionary into this guy's home to reach this good-hearted man with the Lord. Isn't that powerful? The Lord can and he's willing to use anyone. I know a lot of times we think, well, it's these guys and it's these gals that are going to do it. Don't sell yourselves short. You are the ones that can reach people that maybe nobody else can. And that's not just people your age. You can reach certain adults that the rest of us who are adults can't reach. Verse 3, then she said to her mistress, if only my master were with the prophet who is in Samaria, for he would heal him of his leprosy. I believe that remark alone is a great testimony to the character of Naaman. Now, you try to put yourself in this little girl's shoes, and your life has been uprooted. You've been torn away from your home. You may never see your mom, your dad, the rest of your family, and the people that you love. You may never see your homeland ever again. And she goes to this foreign place and is taken as a slave into this guy's home. Yet she thinks so much of this guy that she wants to try to help him out to save his life. You can tell she really means it in the sentiment that she expresses. So that gives you an idea as to what kind of a master this one is. A lot of times when we talk about slavery, whether it's in the Bible or our own country, we always think and assume the worst. And don't get me wrong, I know there was a lot of the worst that went on. But there were a lot of people also who as masters treated their servants very well. This young lady may well have been receiving better treatment in this foreign home as a slave that she received in her own Israelite home as a daughter. But one thing's for sure, she looks at this guy like he's a father. And it's apparent that he must be pretty good to this young lady. If only my master were with the prophet who is in Samaria, for he would heal him of his leprosy. Sounds like she's got a pretty good heart also. And when all this pagan worship is going on, she's still really familiar with the God, the true God of Israel and the power that he possesses. And Naaman went in and told his master, saying, Thus and thus said the girl who is from the land of Syria. He's open-minded. You always hear of these crazy cures for things that people have. Oh, come on. We say that a lot of things. He says, well, maybe there's something here. Open heart, open mind. Then the king of Syria said, and many think this is surprisingly. So Roy, you stated this. A lot of times a ruler wouldn't be this sympathetic towards someone who's an outcast of society. But it's strange that the king of Syria, he's open to this, especially about his enemies to the southwest in Israel. King of Syria said, Go now, and I will send a letter to the king of Israel. So he departed and took with him 10 talents of silver, 6,000 shekels of gold. The shekels, you might guess, is smaller than the talent. You may even have a reference in your Bible. So a biblical talent, sometimes they can differ, but is often 75 pounds in weight. It's a measurement of weight. 75 pounds is 1 talent. So you're looking at 750 pounds of silver. That's a lot of cash. Worth a lot more than it is in our time probably also. 6,000 shekels of gold. A shekel is in weight 2/5 of a single ounce. And I didn't bother. Someone wants to punch that in. You're welcome to in your calculator and chime in for us. But 6,000, and that's going to be ounces. Okay, 2/5 of an ounce, but 6,000 shekels of gold and 10 changes of clothing. I do have an equivalence for you, though, if you're interested as far as like what that would be valued today. So this information comes from James Smith's commentary, and this goes back to mid to late 90s that this was written. So in the 1990s, I've looked at an inflation calculator and, given a little bit of consideration there. So what are we? Roughly 25, 30 years ago, you're looking at $20,000 in value of silver and about $60,000 of value in gold. I believe inflation from the calculator is 193%, which actually I thought is pretty good from 25. Okay, this is random, but I looked at originally when the calculator came up, it was like 1911, I think, or 1912, compared to today, and I want to say it was over 3,000% inflation from our currency 100 years ago. That's crazy, isn't it? Anyway, so you're looking about probably roughly double this, probably $40,000 in silver, and about $120,000 worth of gold. And he throws in to boot 10 changes of clothing. Don't underestimate the value there. What would you think if your mama or your daddy gave you a credit card and said, hey, go to the mall and get whatever you want, get you a whole new wardrobe? All right, I mean, that's not chump change. You easily be looking at $1,000, a couple $1,000 if you were to do that as far as value to us today. So, I mean, we're getting close to a value of $200,000 in American cash that he sends. And he sends this money that the king does of Israel, the king of Syria to the king of Israel. And he says, now be advised when this letter comes to you that I have sent Naaman my servant to you that you may heal him of his leprosy. There are going to be a number of initial mistakes that are made on the part of Naaman / his boss also, the king. And this is the first one right here. Where is he trying to find healing? Naaman. Where is he trying to find healing? I know it's in the land of Israel, but from whom in Israel? Elisha is the suggestion that's been made, but where does he go? And saying, hey, all right, here's what I need you to do for me. He goes to the powerful, popular, prominent person. The guy who's a poster child for Israel and then, in effect, the religion of Israel. What mistake sometimes do people make in trying to find the healing and the cleansing that only the God of Israel can provide? We want to go to the popular people. We want to go to the face, the poster children of religion, right? Okay, now here's what I need you to do for me. Jehoram doesn't have, unfortunately, I'm afraid, a true religious bone in his body. I know he's worshiper of fake gods, but I'm talking about the genuine God. But his picture's connected with it, and therefore they think, okay, this is the guy who's popular, this is the guy who's wealthy, and he's the one, the face that's on the religion that's going to help me out. Do we make that same mistake? You wouldn't go to the person comparably who's poor and who doesn't have a great following. No, you don't want that one. You want the popular guy who's rich, and successful. So this letter is sent from one king to another saying, hey, be advised that this is your duty. You're going to have to heal my servant Naaman. Verse 7, and it happened when the king of Israel read the letter that he tore his clothes and said, what am I supposed to do? Am I God to kill and make alive? That this man sends a man to me to heal him of his leprosy? What he's saying is, I'm not a doctor, I'm a king. I can't do anything about this, but even if I were a doctor, there's no doctor that can do anything for this. Listen, these are, back then is equivalent to the very final stages of terminal cancer. There's nothing that can be done, not under ordinary circumstances. So the king of Israel concludes this, therefore please consider and see how he seeks a quarrel with me. This is a pretense. He doesn't really want me to heal him. He knows I can't heal him. He says, you do this, or this is a threat masked, is what this is. He said he's just wanting to go to war. And this is an excuse just to fight against us. Verse 8, so it was when Elisha, the man of God, heard that the king of Israel had torn his clothes, that he sent to the king saying, why have you torn your clothes? Why are you upset? Why are you saying you can't do this? Please, let him come to me, and he shall know that there is a prophet in Israel. So, by the way, why wouldn't the king just send to Elijah and ask him for help? Turn back to chapter 3. Look at verse 11. You recall it's Jehoram, the son of Ahab, the second one, second son, that is, of Ahab, who's king over Israel. 2 Kings 3:11, but Jehoshaphat, who's king of Judah, said, when he and Jehoram are tag teaming, Israel and Judah, initially they split and have their civil conflict, but then kind of like our country, they come back together. Only in their case, they still officially stay politically divided. Jehoshaphat, king of Judah, says, is there no prophet as we're joining this military action together that we may inquire of the Lord by him? So one of the servants of the king of Israel, Jehoram, answered and said, well, there's Elisha, the son of Shaphat, who's here. But he poured water on the hands of Elijah, meaning he's connected to Elijah. And if you recall back, Elijah, Elisha, they're not on friendly terms with the house of Ahab. They're not good buddies. And Jehoram doesn't bring up his name. It takes a servant to bring up Elisha's name. I know he's connected to Elijah, and things weren't great between the two families, you guys. Look down at verse 14. And when Elisha is contacted, he says, as the Lord of hosts, the God of Israel lives, before whom I stand, surely were it not that I regard the presence of Jehoshaphat, king of Judah, who is a good guy, he says to the king of Israel, I would not look at you, nor see you. Relations are still very tense between the camp of Elijah. I know he's gone on to the reward in heaven now. But the camp of Elijah, which includes Elisha, and the family of Ahab, which includes the sitting king of Israel still, Jehoram. So when I ask you from back in 2 Kings 5:8, why wouldn't the king of Israel just send to Elisha and ask him for help? They're not on speaking terms. Elisha's told him that. I wouldn't talk to you. I wouldn't even look at you if it wouldn't have been the king of Judah that were connected to this. So he doesn't really have that working relationship with Elisha. But thankfully, Elisha hears of this, and he says, you shouldn't be tearing your clothes. You should be sending me a message. But somebody else has. So send the guy down here, and I will save your life, and I will save our country. Verse 9. Then Naaman went with his horses and chariot, and he stood at the door of Elisha's house. He has his messengers doing some of this, but he gets to this place, undoubtedly it's just a shanty in the hillside, and he looks at this and he thinks, why don't you go in and talk to this guy? It's kind of suggested here that he turns up his nose at this place. These are two humble means for a man of his prominence to enter. Mistake number 2, don't allow your heart to be filled with pride and to think you're better than somebody else on the basis of your societal standing when you place yours and his or hers side by side. Well, Elisha meets his disrespect with a little bit of disrespect himself. Elisha does not go out to talk to him, but Elisha sends a messenger right back to him, saying, "Go and wash in the Jordan 7 times, and your flesh shall be restored to you, and you shall be clean." The prophet doesn't even go out to meet the guy who's too good for this man. So the guy says, "All right, you're too good for me, I'm too good for you, I guess, and so we'll just communicate via our representatives." I think he probably feels a little bit slighted from that. I mean, this is an important guy. He's had a lot of success in life, and he's traveled. I want to point this out now, and you might be able to tell by the legend. This guy has traveled up here from the northeast roughly 100 miles, whether it's this or this, which could be even a little bit more than that. He's traveled 100 plus miles to get to where this is over very difficult terrain. And then he gets here and he's ready to be healed. I'm sure he's worn out and he misses the comforts of home. And this guy says, "You need to go to the Jordan River." This is in Samaria, he tells him. "Go to the Jordan River. And you need to wash in it 7 times and then you'll be clean." I want you to look at where the Jordan River is compared to Samaria. It's a good 20, maybe as many as 30 miles away. Again, over more difficult terrain. Will he be willing to travel the extra mile to get the cleansing that he so desperately seeks? He's been instructed what he needs to do, verse 11. But Naaman became furious. Mistake number 3, don't let emotions govern your actions. Don't let emotions cloud your judgment. You need a clear mind to be able to think through things. Now, a lot of times when we're told something by God or by a servant of God that comes straight out of His Word, something we need to do, immediately we feel our blood pressure rise, might even start to get a little red in the face, and we become angry because we don't want to do that. But that's what we've been told. We have to find a channel to get rid of some of that anger so that we can think clearly, Roy. It is. It really is. The two of those things go hand in hand. So another emotion, and his arrogance also leads to this mentality in verse 11. He became furious, and he went away. Mistake number 4. When God tells you to go in a certain direction to do something, don't turn around and go the other way. Jonah, I want you to go, okay, well, if you want me to go over here to the east, I'm going to go as far east. I'll go as far west as I possibly can. Don't go in the opposite direction when God tells you to go in this direction. Mistake number 4. Mistake number 5. Indeed, I said to myself, he will surely come out to me and stand and call on the name of the Lord his God and wave his hand over the place and heal the leprosy. He has this preconceived notion as to how his cleansing must take place. And he says it's going to be a great show. I just know it. He's going to stand and he's going to meet me. Wow, the great Naaman is standing in my presence. And he's going to put his hands up in the air and wave them around and call out on the name of God. And he has it all figured out in his mind. Do we as human beings make the same mistake? Well, I know when I meet this great religious figure who's the poster child of religion, he's going to be so, or she, be so impressed when the person finds out who I am. and even if not, though, it's okay because, I'm going to go up on a stage and this person's going to stand up and make a big show and holler out and wave his or her arms, and I'm going to feel the power of God rushing through me. That's the way it's going to work. Does God acquiesce to the way we think things are going to go? Or does he expect us to conform and to do things his way? Mistake number, where are we? 5, 6, something like that. With Naaman. You see all the mistakes. These are human natures. It's not just Naaman. We tend to think this way. Verse 12, I think it's mistake number 6 at this point. He says, even if washing should take place, it's in the wrong place. Are not the Abanah and the Pharpar, the rivers of Damascus, known for being like the spring-fed streams in southeastern Missouri? Beautiful, clear, clean streams. If you're dirty and you need to be made clean, wouldn't you go wash in a clean body of water? Doesn't that make more sense? He's using earthly instead of heavenly rationale. Are they not better than all the waters of Israel? When you go up a little bit farther north into Missouri, it's like when you cross over the Missouri River. The Ohio, really muddy when the Mississippi. And I mean, if you're dirty and you want to be clean, wouldn't you go down to the Jacks Fork or the Current River or to the North Fork River, the Bryant, all those different streams, and just get in them. Why would you step into the Missouri, into the Ohio, or the Mississippi? That doesn't make any earthly sense. So he turned and went away in a rage. He's in fury. He's not just angry. He is furious because of how the God of heaven has insulted him in such ways. Who would like to say our memory verse, number 13? Go ahead, Roy. There you go, Roy. And he just can't for the life of him comprehend the instruction because he's looking at things from the standpoint of the guy who always has the answer. The guy who's in charge. And who does it take to talk some sense into him to be able to get him to see another perspective? There you go. These guys are used to it. I mean, that's the life that they live. They say, look, hey, we live this every day. We know this is new to you. And they don't mean this at all disrespectfully. They show tremendous humility and gentleness and respect toward their master. They say, we understand this. We do this every day, but here's what we do with you. We don't get to call the shots. We just listen to you, and you say this, and okay, that's exactly what we'll do. That's all you have to do here, and you'll be clean. And it's not hard at all. What he said is actually very small and really easy. It's almost like it's too easy. Listen, God doesn't give us complicated instructions. Yeah. Oh, hang on to that. God doesn't give complicated instructions. What does he tell us today? Listen, you're plagued by the terminal disease. There's no doctor on earth that can do anything about it. You're afflicted in your soul with sin, and there's no hope at all, except just come ask. Come ask the God of heaven. I have the answer, and here's the answer. Just go wash and be clean. It's simple. And yet, what often is the response to that very simple, easy instruction? Oh, that's not right, because the poster child, the prominent, successful, rich guy, he stands on the stage and he waves his hands and he calls out to God, and that's the way it's supposed to be done. Well, you can try it that way, but that's not the way the God of heaven effects cleansing to people who need it. How much more? If he told you to do something almost impossible, wouldn't everybody in the world who believed in him try it? But yet, when he says to do something so easy, just go wash and be clean. And it's only the humble of heart that are going to find that cleansing from him. Paul? Yeah, very good, Paul. And I'm going to also return to something that Roy said, verse 14. So he went down and dipped 7 times. Why 7? In the Jordan, according to the saying of the man of God, and his flesh was restored like the flesh of a little child, and he was clean. Little baby comes out, and don't you just love to love on babies? They're my favorite. I love babies. And they get big and sassy and rebellious, but they're like puppies. Everybody loves puppies. They're so cute, and then that's what you grow into. Well, we say that and we think that way about babies and puppies and everything is little because they're perfect in every way. His flesh was restored. How? Like that of a little child. Perfect. Roy, what's the number 7 mean in the Bible? You don't have to answer, but okay. I think that's what God has in mind with the number 7. The type of cleansing he's going to give is based on the type of commandment that is performed, the perfect one, to be perfectly cleansed. All right, we'll spend the last little bit of time here that we have on the apprentice of Elisha. And he returned to the man of God. He and his aides, he came and he stood before him and he said, Indeed, now I know that there is no God in all the earth except in Israel. Now, therefore, please take a gift from your servant. Here, I appreciate what you've done to the prophet so much that I'll give you $200,000. Woo! And he urged him to take it, but he refused. So Naaman said, then if not, please let your servant be given 2 mule loads of earth, for your servant will no longer offer burnt offering or sacrifice to other gods, but only to the Lord. Yet in this thing may the Lord pardon your servant. When my master goes into the temple of Rimmon, false god of the Syrians, to worship there, and he leans on my hand, and I bow down in the temple of Rimmon, when I bow down in the temple, may the Lord please pardon your servant in this thing. And he said to him, go in peace. So he departed from him a short distance. Just a couple of things here. Some believe he's asking for permission to worship a false god. I don't think that's it. If you look back in verse 18, in verse 15, he's already said there's no other God, right, except the one that is in Israel. And then it's stated, I will worship no other God. Verse 17, I'm not going to offer burnt offering sacrifice to other gods anymore. I don't think he's saying, will God give me permission to worship a false god? He's already said, I'm not going to do that anymore. I believe what he's saying is it's expected out of me to go through some motions and to hit my knee, whenever I'm in the temple. I'm not going to be worshiping the God. Is it okay if I don't engage, but my knee goes down? Maybe even I say a prayer to the true God, the one in Israel. Would that be okay? And I think that's probably what he's asking here. And I don't believe there would be anything wrong with that. Verse 20, but Gehazi, servant of Elisha, the man of God, said, look, my master has spared Naaman the Syrian. Mistake number 1, we should kill our enemies and shouldn't let them survive. But if he's not going to kill him, he should have at least taken the money from him. But as the Lord lives, I will run after him and take something from him. Mistake number 2 from Gehazi, I'm going to do things my own way, even if God says to do them a different one. So Gehazi pursued Naaman. When Naaman saw him running after him, he got down from the chariot to meet him, and he said, is all well? He said, all is well. My master has sent me, though, saying, mistake number 3, this is a lie. His master has not sent him, and he has not told him to spread this information. My master sent me to say, well, we just had 2 guys show up, the sons of the prophets. We don't have money to take care of them or clothes to put on them. And so would you give me just a talent, just a tenth of what you offered of the silver and 2 changes of clothes? So Naaman said, absolutely. He doesn't know any better. Please, take 2 talents. By the way, who's that sound like? Someone asks you for 1, you give them double. He's operating by the mentality of the God of heaven now, isn't he? And he might have been that way before, but he's certainly showing that to be the case. He's a changed man. He hands them to 2 of his servants. They carry them on ahead of him. When he comes to the citadel, the capital, Samaria, he took them from their hands, stored them away in the house, hides them, and then he let the men go, and they departed. He doesn't want Elisha seeing these guys back in the capital city, does he? Now he went in and stood before his master, and Elisha said to him, oh, where did you go, Gehazi? And he's going to demonstrate he knows the answer to this question. Who does that sound like? You do wrong, you try to hide it, and then someone with a divine presence says, oh, where have you been? What have you been doing? That takes you back to the Garden of Eden, doesn't it? He said, your servant did not go anywhere. When you have the chance to make things right and you've told a lie, just be honest and state what it is that you've done and admit that you made a mistake. Gehazi doesn't. What are we at, 3rd, 4th mistake? Then he said to him, did not my heart go with you when the man turned back from his chariot to meet you? He says, is it time to receive money and clothing, olive groves, vineyards, sheep and oxen, male and female servants, for something not we, but the Lord did? We just passed on what he told us to tell somebody. Then the leprosy of Naaman therefore the leprosy of Naaman shall cling to you and your descendants forever. And he went out from his presence leprous, as white as snow. Unfortunately, Gehazi apparently thinks he's better than others. That kind of sounds like Naaman earlier on, doesn't it? Before he makes the change. He's better than the Syrian, and that God's rules don't apply to him in the same way. And I can take advantage of people who are on the outside. I can cheat. I can lie. And then I can lie about it, and I can get away with it. What we find with Gehazi in 2 Kings 5, and what we learn is that the message doesn't just come from Elisha and from Naaman, but we have to beware lest we also fall into the same trap that Gehazi did. God's rules apply to us. How we treat people makes a difference. How we deal with outsiders makes a difference. God's aware, and He's watching. That takes us through 2 Kings 5. For next week, please read chapter 6. Some incredible stuff about an axe head, and we talked about the Syrian, the apprentice and the Syrian. Well, next week is about the axe head, and the Syrians, plural. We're going to deal with this country more closely. Memory verse, 2 Kings 6:17. It's one of my favorite verses in the Bible. Look at that one. Memorize it, please. 2 Kings 6:17. Any other comments, though, from today's chapter 5? Yes, Roy. You can. You can. Yeah, the one who created life can bring death. The one who created health can bring sickness and disease. Yeah, absolutely. Very good, Roy. Okay, thank you.